What they won't tell you, we will. Come and Take It News.
Welcome to the Come and Take It News podcast. I'm your host, Clint Milby. Abel Garcia is a male to female detransitioner. He medically transitioned in late 2016 after being quickly affirmed by the medical community as a transgender woman. He went down a path of medical and social transition, which eventually led to being quickly put on a path for surgical transition. Abel only received one of few major surgeries, but eventually that was enough to wake him up from the lies of the transgender lifestyle. Okay, Abel Garcia, I recently saw you on InfoWars on the War Room, and I was just amazed by your story. For folks that don't know, tell us a little bit about who you are and what brought you, to this point in your life, I guess. Kind of start from the beginning, if you don't mind.
Sure. So for those who don't know who I am, my name is Abel Garcia. I'm a male to female detransitioner. So what that means is I'm biologically male, for those who are probably going to be asking in the comments. I transitioned, quote unquote, transitioned from male to female, trying to become a transgender woman. And then after getting slapped in the face by reality, I realized that was not a possibility. So I detransitioned back to how I was born, so a biological man. I've done this. I started all this in 2016, and it's been a long year.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, well, it's been several years for all of us, I think. But talk a little bit about, you had mentioned in that interview that you had kind of this, talk about what the dysphoria or gender dysphoria was like for you. When was it you were unhappy with your body per se, and then it just the idea started coming to you that you might be female? Or can you talk about like your headspace during that time when you just first started considering it?
So the youngest I can remember is when I was a little kid. I wasn't the most masculine kid. I was very shy, timid, emasculate, in other words. My father, due to the fact that he was here illegally, he obviously was always working, so I didn't really have much time to spend with my father. And obviously a young boy does need a male role model in his life. I didn't have that in my life. And the more I've been doing all this, I might be autistic. And I say might because I've yet to get formally diagnosed. And I say that as well because I do see that as a trend with a lot of detransitioners, that they're somewhat autistic or on the autism spectrum. I did bring that up once to a therapist, and he said that if I were, it would be what used to be called Asperger's, but we have never had myself tested formally.
Now, you spent some time in the trans community, and you're spending some time in the detrans community. That seems to be kind of a common thread for a lot of the younger trans people. Is that right?
Yes, I do see a lot of autism with them. Another issues is the best way I can explain it with these young kids.
Did you, because you felt like you weren't maybe stereotypical masculine, is that when you started feeling like maybe I'm in the wrong body, or how did that come about, that idea?
Yeah, so like I said, due to how I was raised as a kid, very emasculated, and I'm from a Mexican background. So for those who don't know, my culture is very masculine, very machismo, and obviously me being not that masculine played a issue in my own mind. So for some reason, my mind assumed that if I wasn't good enough to be a man, I must have been a woman. But because obviously I was so young, I didn't really know what the word transgender was. So I didn't really know anything at the time. I didn't really think about it too much until I found the word transgender in about, I'd say, late middle school, early high school.
And when you found that out, I think you had mentioned in a previous interview that you had done a lot of research online, or kind of like started researching on your own, and that's where some of this came from?
So I accidentally found it on YouTube. I don't even remember how I did it. But this was like, what I'd say, a little over a decade ago. So the YouTube that I grew up with is much different from the YouTube nowadays with these kids. Back then, it wasn't pushed on us nowadays it's pushed on the kids. But again, I don't remember how I found it, but it was a video I know at least it was a male to female, and for some reason that made sense to my mind at the time. I did a little research into it, like if that was a possibility or not, and the internet made it sound like it was a possibility, but I didn't act on any of those emotions or ideas I had until after I had left high school.
When you were in high school, were you seeing a therapist during that time, during your high school years?
No, I've never seen a therapist until I personally chose to see one after I was out of high school.
And was that at the LGBTQ center or?
Yes, that was at the LGBT center.
So how did you approach that? You just like went in, made an appointment, or you called and made an appointment?
So I had asked someone that that wasn't even a member of the LGBT community. I don't remember why I asked them or what led me to ask them, but I asked somebody. They said that they had gay friends that they would get me a phone number so I can get some help. And eventually it was the number for the local LGBT center. I called and I said, "Hey, I think I might be transgender. I'd like some help." They told me they can book me for an appointment, and eventually I got that appointment with a therapist.
Was this therapist, were they trans or what?
No, she was just a lesbian woman.
How long did you meet with her before you started actually taking chemicals and things like that?
So I saw her early 2016, and on my first appointment with her, she immediately affirmed me as a transgender woman. She said that she had my letters to start hormones, and when I questioned her, she said that she did not want to gatekeep me.
What does that mean, gatekeep you?
From what I've learned, it just means you doing your job. She just didn't want to do her job. It's exactly what it is.
Did she ask you a series of questions, or how do you think she came to that determination? Was it anything more than I think I'm a girl, or was it something more? Was there some in-depth like test that she gave you, or?
No, I just told her I think I might be transgender. I need your help, and that was it. When she said, "Yes, I'm a transgender woman." At the time, I was a little shocked at how quickly she affirmed me, but because I was only 19 at the time, I also my mind said, "Well, she's a medical professional. She's a therapist, so she probably sees a lot of people like myself." So
she must know what she's doing, right?
Yeah, that's what I assumed at the beginning, but obviously I had a little bit of doubt in myself, which was good in the long run. But I didn't accept the hormones until later that year. I believe I accepted them in October of that year, but I wasn't able to start until November.
Once she gave you like essentially this title that you are transgender now, kind of affirming you in that, did you change your name? Did you start dressing like a girl at this point?
No, I was still living with my parents, and so I didn't want to do anything. It was just until I officially decided to transition later that year, it was just thoughts. I wanted to make sure everything that I was doing was accurate. I didn't want to obviously make the wrong choice, which fortunately I did make the wrong choice. So it was just thoughts here and there. I don't think I did any social transition until I moved out, if I remember correctly, but it's been so many years.
When you were at the center and you were going to counseling, did they provide you with like support groups or stuff like that?
Yeah, so there was a support group for transgenders. I think they met either once a month or once every 2 weeks, and they did want me to join them, and I did join them.
And what was that like? Did it like apply like essentially kind of peer pressure for you to move forward, or give you like the, kind of the green light, I guess?
From what I remember, it was a lot of affirmation. So obviously, when I said I was trans, everyone was very happy and proud of me, saying this is who I was supposed to be. And obviously, 19-year-old kid who really doesn't know much, I believed it.
You believed it. And then so you had told a really striking story about having you described it was like essentially a sexual assault that had taken place, that your father had hooked you up with a prostitute. Is that right?
Yes. So not long after I started seeing the therapist, my father caught wind of that I wanted to transition, and to keep it PG and for the viewers, I'll let their minds go into detail. But I was taken to Mexico by my father. It was under pretense of him needing a second driver because he was going to go to dentist appointment. He was going to go under anesthesia. I'm probably butchering that, but he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to drive back because it took a while to get us to and from the border. So he took me out. He wanted me to be his backup driver. After everything that he did, which was true the dentist part, he did talk to the dentist and some other random lady. And unknowingly, it was to find a prostitute not far from there. He finds it. We go, and I'm worth only $100. And like I said, just to keep it PG, I did sleep with the prostitute. I don't recall most of that incident, as my mind does wish to keep that blocked out. But the incident that I remember the most from that day is my father telling the prostitute, I'll say it in Spanish and then translate it to English just so the viewers understand. My father told the prostitute, "Cuídalo bien es su primera vez," which just means take good care of him, it's his first time. Because prior to that, I was still a virgin.
Now, was this action by your dad, was this like in response to him coming into the knowledge of what was going on with you sexually?
I don't know 100%. I actually just got that answer from my father, but because he called me when I was still asleep yesterday. He told me, from what he said, is once I turned 18, my mother informed him that I had never been with a woman. So he assumed that, once I turned 18, and since I had never been with a woman sexually, and all my friends in high school were female, or I didn't have friends, my dad assumed that it'd be best to take me to a prostitute. So I don't know if that was obviously perfect timing for him, that I come out to my mother as a transgender woman from a few months prior, and now he wants to do that, or what, but it kind of happened perfect timing for him, I'd say.
So you guys returned to the States, and did you then what happened next? Did you start your plans to move out and start transitioning, or how did that go?
Yeah, so after that, obviously I was traumatized. I didn't want to be with my father anymore because obviously he hurt me. I saw my therapist not long after that. I told her, hey, this is what just happened. I was just traumatized. I want to move out and I want to start transitioning as soon as I can. We worked on it, and eventually, like I said, October when I moved out, November I started hormones. And from there, I started to transition.
Now, did they help provide you a place to stay and stuff like that, or how did that go?
I was able to find a place.
You started hormones, and then did you start, like, as you say, social transitioning at that point? Where
Yes. As soon as I started taking hormones, I slowly did the social transition because I didn't want to do it overnight. Because I was working with students at the time at a school. So I didn't want to make it seem too odd, because unlike the ones that are the people nowadays, I actually had respect and I guess enough respect for the students not to do it overnight. I was trying to do it slowly.
So you were a school teacher?
Not a school teacher, more of I guess a security guard, because it was more for an elementary school, just to keep an eye on the kids in the morning when they came in, to make sure everyone was being dropped off properly, and then make sure everyone was behaving during lunch.
Who started noticing first that weren't aware of what was going on with you?
I obviously told the school, I was like, hey, I'm going to transition. Here's what's going on. And they had no issue. I don't know if the kids paid attention, honestly, because kids are kids, you know how they are. But it went pretty well, honestly. I didn't really last long at that school because it was only a temporary position. So I guess it helped.
At any point in time, did you start feeling like really positive about this scenario? Like, did you start feeling like, wow, I'm doing things that I'm supposed to be doing. I'm becoming who I'm supposed to be. And did it all start kind of falling in line in your head? Did it start making sense for you?
Yeah, so in the beginning, as I would call a honeymoon phase, everything went very well. I was getting love bombed by other activists, by everyone around me.
And how did you meet these activists? Were these part of the support group at the center?
Yeah, some of them were through the support group. One of them, which is a male to female, he was working at the hospital at the clinic that I was going to, and my doctor introduced me to him. And after I started to transition, I reached out to him because obviously I was alone. I didn't have anyone, and I wanted to build a connection with a community. And well, eventually I did build it with the trans community, and like I said, everyone loved on me, said this is who I was supposed to be. So I was very happy in the beginning because I was being lied to.
You start building this community, and did you at some point in time, did you start to feel like there was expectations put upon you by these relationships? Like they had expectations about, who you were supposed to be, maybe your relationships with your family, things like that?
So regarding my relationship with my family, they said that my family was toxic. They were hateful. They didn't love me because they didn't want me to be who I was supposed to be. Obviously, I believed them, and I have strained the relationship with my family. I will say that. Overall, they said that as long as I told the line with what they agreed with, they would always love bomb me. Is I guess the best way I could explain it on them.
So as long as you were saying all the right things and kind of holding to the pro-trans mantra, then you were good, and they were going to reward you for that socially.
Yes.
How long was that period for you?
I'd say from November 2016 until maybe July of 2017, maybe June. I'm going to be honest, I don't remember exactly the timeline near the ending, just because near the end of by the time my honeymoon ended, I know for a fact that it was after I got breast implants, because around the same time I had just filled the police academy, I got breast implants, and I was working as a volunteer for my local police department. So about under 2 years is what I'd say.
So when you started investigating, you decided that you wanted to do law enforcement, and that was sounds like you were doing kind of that at that school before. So this must have been something that was kind of a long-term goal for you.
Yeah, so I wanted to become a police officer, and because at the time there was no one in the local police department that was transgender, I wanted to be a cop, so it really didn't really matter. But I was hoping, well, if I become a cop as a transgender woman, it looked good for the department and the community, because it'd be like, hey, they're building a good relationship.
And you're showing that trans people can be whoever they want to be.
Yeah. The chief of police, he liked me. He had no issues with me, and I was working with him as a volunteer. But apparently that was not good enough for the trans community. They didn't like the fact that I wanted to be a cop.
Why were they so against you being a police officer?
I honestly don't know. I've never really got an answer, and I know I'm never going to, because after I filled the academy, joined the police as a volunteer, I went to try to build a better relationship with the community and the police. The gentleman who was there with me at the doctor's office that my doctor had called in. When I was talking to him, he did not like my questions that I had asked, and started to accuse me of being a cisgender woman. For the viewers who don't know what that means, it just means a woman who was born a woman. Obviously, he didn't like that, and he complained to the chief of police that I was harassing him. And him and the other man were then started harassing me.
Now, this was this was somebody within the police department?
No, this was from the transgender community.
Oh, so he called the police and said that you were harassing him?
He called the chief of police. Because I guess he had direct contact to the chief. I don't know if it was through email or phone call, but he reached out to the chief saying I was harassing him, which I wasn't. I was just asking him some simple questions on how to better build a relationship between the transgender community and the police department, which I guess he didn't like.
And so once that happened, did that kind of put the kibosh on your opportunities with that department?
No. So the chief actually, he got the complaints, he looked at it, and he realized they were fake. They were trying to bullshit it to his face, so he ignored it. But the issue then became that, obviously, because that person who I was speaking to was very prominent within the LGBT community overall, and the fact that he didn't get his way, he started to drag my name through the mud. And I didn't realize that until a few months later.
How old was this person?
I think he's in his 40s or 50s.
You're kidding. So this old guy is targeted you essentially because he doesn't approve of your life or your vocation or your aspirations for law enforcement.
That is correct.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Take a step back. It's one thing to were you taking injections or was it a topical solution or just out of curiosity, the estrogen that they were giving you?
So I started off estrogen as a pill, eventually switching to the injections.
And once you started taking that, biologically for you, how did it affect your headspace? Did you? I've heard people say that it affects their emotions. And it also affects physically, like their muscle mass starts to wither and stuff like that.
So I wasn't the most masculine, so not much muscle was lost. Obviously, my body changed to be a bit more feminine. Overall headspace, I don't really think I saw much of a difference to then, but I'd say I probably went a little crazy. Especially with I'd say because I thought everything was a possibility. Is the best way I'll put it.
I think a lot of people feel that way when they're young, and it kind of is, you have a blank page, but I could see where, all of that excitement, could really, did that make you take risks or something like that?
No, I try to be living my life as stealth as possible. I didn't really want people to know that I was transgender at the time. I just wanted to live a normal life, so no.
Now, I want to ask a difficult question. Your sexual orientation through the course of this, were you attracted to men at some point, or were you always attracted to women, or how did that play out for you?
So my whole life, I guess you can call me asexual. I really didn't care enough for people, for enough of a relationship. But before I ever thought of transitioning, I wanted to have a wife and kids. Even though I wasn't really sexually attracted to anyone, I think that might be to the fact that I always had low testosterone, which I didn't realize until after, or right before I started medical transitioning when that was brought up to me. Now, when I was transitioning, because it was in the early stages, I thought that was going to be the rest of my life, and I did not want to be looked at as an odd couple. I was assuming that I would probably get a husband eventually, which I wasn't really attracted to men. But I never dated anyone. To this day, I'm into women, but again, I still haven't dated anyone. But I guess that's more because I've damaged my body, and I'm I have issues with myself, so I kind of don't think that. Obviously, I've destroyed part of my body, so I don't think most women would want to deal with that.
Well, I think, and confidence, be it whatever, body, money, your appearance, or whatever. I'm just talking about things that I've struggled with over the years that have made me like not want to be around anybody, So I think it's tough, but I can totally understand that. I mean, you want to get yourself together before you start like going after someone else, so you have that level of confidence. So that makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you, when you were talking to the counselor, and I don't know if this came up, but did you present to her that you might one day want to have children and a wife? And did you ever share those aspirations with any of your trans friends?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think I ever did. Again, it's been many years. I've had so many conversations. I don't remember whether that was ever a topic. I know, obviously, I wanted kids because I did talk to my doctor about having kids, and he did say I would have to get my sperm frozen, but that was not covered by my insurance.
Wow. But they mentioned that to you, though, that that's something you'd have to do.
Yeah, that was because I brought it up to my doctor. Overall, to others, I don't remember.
Now, taking, injections of pills and everything like that is one thing. It's another thing to go underneath the knife. When you made the decision to move forward with breast implants, that's a big deal, right?
Yeah. So that's it.
Did you labor over that decision for a long time, or?
So let me say it this way. So before I started any of my medical transition, right before I saw a therapist, I had told myself for any surgeries and everything, I wanted to have a timeline for myself. I wanted 5 years before I got the implants and 10 years before I did anything regarding my genitals, because I knew that one was going to be more permanent in case, with a small possibility, that was my thinking at the time, small possibility of being wrong. Which I guess it's a good thing I had that for myself, and I listened to myself, because not a year into starting medical transition with the hormones, a medical professional signed off on me to getting surgery, both breast implants and bottom surgery, when I had only asked for implants.
Did that shock you?
I was a little shocked. I was a little confused when I got the letter, but I ignored it. And now that I've had the opportunity to think about it, I'm just like, I'm kind of wondering how many other people this has happened to. And that they probably only ask for one, they get both, and they go through both surgeries. Luckily, because I did give myself a timeline, I broke one of the rules, but I stuck my guns to the other one. And I guess I dodged a huge bullet, because I've heard a lot of horror stories.
Just the damage that it's done. And was the doctor that did this, was he in a clinic? Or did the LGBT center have a hospital, or how did that work?
He was at a clinic, and it was a clinic that I was going to, and it was it was a transgender clinic that they had.
And was this place, was it kind of a bustling place? Was there a lot of business going through there? Did you see, like, when you'd be in the waiting room and stuff, or?
There was not always a lot of people, because it was a small clinic, but sometimes it'd be busy, sometimes it wouldn't. It's rarely it'd be very busy, but it wasn't just for transgender patients, because when they first opened it, they only had access to a few of the buildings, because they eventually bought the whole building and had to remodel everything. So in the beginning, it was for everyone, but they knew it was going to be mostly for transgender patients.
So now it's expanded, or it expanded over the time that you were going there?
Yes.
How did you feel after you had that breast surgery? Was that just like, number one, was the recoup time, was it pretty harsh?
I think it took a few weeks for me to get back on my feet. I honestly don't recall, but because I was working a 9 to 5 job, I had to be back quickly anyway. So, but overall, in the beginning, it went very well. I was very happy again. It's the honeymoon phase, and because I was still connected with with the whole trans community, they love bomb me, saying this is good for me. This is what I've always wanted, etc. Plus, I also had events the few months after the surgery, so it was a little busy.
How did you feel once you saw yourself and you were healed? Was there a sense of feeling a completion, or did you feel like it was a mistake right away? How did you feel?
In the beginning, I was very happy because this is what I assumed is what I wanted, but after being left alone by the transgender community, being ostracized, and having time to think about with it myself, I the best way I can explain it is I got slapped in the face by reality and realized I was making a mistake. I was destroying my body. And even if I had done everything to alter my body, um, including face, obviously genital surgery and everything, I realized that I would never become a woman. All I would be is either I would become a mutilated man who was trying to do a caricature of what I assumed a woman was.
Now, I've heard that said before, and I'm just curious, what was the epiphany for you? Or was it a lot of little things, or did you hear someone talk, or was this a spiritual matter for you?
I'd say it was a slow buildup because, like I said earlier, before I went to see this therapist, there was a part of me in the back of my mind. I don't know if you want to call it my own mind, my conscience, whatever you want to call it. It told me that I could be wrong. I'm more than likely wrong on this because obviously humans can't change sex, gender, whatever they call it nowadays. And obviously I ignored it, but I compromised with myself as with that timeline. And I guess because I broke my own rule and the slow buildup with obviously being ostracized and having enough time to for myself, I was able to, I guess, I just got smacked, like I said, smacked in the face by reality. And I realized that I was wrong.
I mean, dude, that's a hell of a thing to like come to grips with. So many people, self included, have made bad decisions and they've moved forward with them because they're ashamed or they're prideful. I guess it's the same thing. You're really lucky that you had the fortitude to be able to recognize this and not just bury it with coping mechanisms like drugs and alcohol or something like that. But,
I was coping hard.
oh yeah. So were you drinking during this whole time?
So not long after I realized I was wrong, and I went to the first therapist and I asked her, "Hey, I think I might be wrong. Can I get some help? I think I might want to reverse everything and detransition." She told me it was not because I wanted to detransition. It was actually childhood traumas coming back up, and the fact that I had just recently had surgery is what was causing me to doubt myself.
So did she talk about like internalized homophobia or transphobia?
No.
When she was talking about childhood traumas, was talking about something that had happened in your past that she was aware of, or
I don't know what she meant by that.
So she was just spitballing. She was just saying like whatever.
Yes, and I say that because that's what she wrote in her medical documents with me, wow. Since I have access to those now. So yeah, so that was her response. After that, I realized she was crazy. I called my insurance like, "Hey, I need a therapist. Who do you guys have?" And they recommended one that was at the clinic that I've been going to. And I did not have faith in him. So I had gone to the military, the nearest military recruitment center. And I said, "Hey, I'm transgender. I want to become a guy again. I know right now I can't as a woman, quote unquote woman. What do I need to do? She said, well, I was told that I need to detransition or finish the surgery. I said, I'd rather not finish the surgery. So I was communicating with the military at the time and spoke to the second therapist. I said, I want to join the military. And this is the only option they're giving me. Can you sign off on this so I can enlist? He did not buy that. And what stuck out to me about him here was, again, medical records show that he said, I should not be too cavalier with my gender identity, especially because I don't know the potential damages that could happen to my body due to my detransition.
The damages that could happen for detransitioning.
That is correct.
But no consideration for the damages of what transitioning would do, though.
That is correct. Yeah, never got any pushback until I wanted to detransition.
And you've only been on hormones for a couple of years at this point. So what damage was supposed to occur? I
don't know. They've never told me anything. I had also asked him if the military does not accept me to enlist as a woman, would my insurance cover all the reversal surgeries? Spoke to one of the doctors there who is also a male to female, and they said no, my insurance would not cover it. So I found that interesting because though they covered everything to destroy my body, but when I wanted to repair it, they said no. I started to realize there was something else in this besides what they were saying.
Well, what do you think that is?
Well, I become a lifetime patient for these people, to these medical doctors, to these surgeons, to these drug companies. Why would they want to lose a patient for the rest of my life? And who knows how much they can make off of me, millions, if not billions. Especially if I would have gotten the genital surgery, and that one has a high complication rate. So yeah, that would have been an interesting one, as best I can say. But yeah, no, after the two therapists would not help me, I became a very heavy alcoholic and was abusing alcohol for a while. Not my best time, I'm going to be honest.
How long did that go on for?
I think about a year before I realized I was, again, destroying my body.
So you were still taking the hormones and all of that?
I think for about half of that, because I stopped taking hormones in April of 2019.
Did you have any ramifications from the drinking? Did you have a DUI or anything?
No, I would only drink at home.
By yourself?
Yeah, I would just lock myself in my room, drink alcohol, and just try to numb as much of the pain I was dealing with.
And so you didn't have anybody, no support at all, right?
By then I was left by the transgender community, so I didn't have anyone there. I was too chicken to admit that I was wrong to my family, to my friends, since they were supportive from the beginning. So I was left alone, honestly. I was left alone with my own thoughts, my own mind. We want to go from a spiritual perspective, my own demons. They had a fun time, though, the demons, if I'm going to speak from a religious point of view. But yeah, no, that was not the best time of my life. Obviously, abused alcohol for a while. Eventually, I got over it. And I've been doing pretty well. I try not to drink anymore, not because I know I'm going to abuse it, but because I just don't really like the taste of alcohol anymore. I'll drink here and there, but overall, I don't like it.
So you met another therapist, though, right?
Yeah, so I got one final therapist, and he was the one who was able to help me.
Was he at the same clinic? Was he at the center, or
no? He was at his own location. I actually found him through another detransitioner. So as much as YouTube destroyed my life, it actually also saved it, because I found an interview with a detransitioner whose now in his 80s, early 80s. And I reached out to him, and after a few conversations, he informed me he had a friend here where I lived at the time, and he would be able to help me out with my detransition.
Wow.
Yeah, so it took a bit to get an appointment with him, but when I eventually got a chance to speak to him, the therapist said he would help me. But because it was California, I wanted to detransition. It would be very hard for the two of us as we were walking on eggshells, because if the state of California found out what we were doing, they could probably charge him with conversion therapy law, which is illegal in California.
So this is the thing that is, to me, is, you know, it's one thing to kind of slick the road so that people can, you know, slide into trans medical care and stuff like that. It's another thing to put up roadblocks for somebody that's an adult person that wants to stop what they're doing and detransition, and to actually make that to the point where it's a burden on the therapist and the medical professional to help somebody that needs their help. I mean, that's a big, I could see the guy's point. He doesn't want to get sued. He doesn't want to lose his license. And so how did you guys handle that?
So when he obviously told me that, and we agreed that everything moving forward was of my own personal choice. Nothing was pushed on to me from him. And that is the best way we handled it, because if we were caught, it would be my choice, not his. So if anyone were to get in trouble, it would at least be me, which I don't think I'd get in trouble, but it was California. It's California.
Yeah.
Potato, whatever.
So you don't know. So how long did you guys meet for?
I saw him, I believe, late 2019 until May of this year, when I stopped seeing him as I had left California. I saw him every 2 weeks, and we communicated on why I wanted to transition, if detransition was really what I wanted, and eventually we got everything signed off. Obviously, it was also during COVID-19, so that wasn't fun. And we apparently need another medical professional to sign off on the detransition for my insurance. And doctors were very limited, and not everyone wanted to accept new patients. So it was a little difficult to get someone else to sign off on it.
So what happened then? Was it, did you start with the surgery, or how did that go? So
after we got a second medical professional to sign off on me for my detransition, I told my insurance, hey, I got 2 letters. Here you go. They came back with me with a rejection saying that they would not cover it. I did an appeal. 30 days later, I got it. They said, okay, never mind, we were wrong. And then they said, okay, so here's the surgeon that you're going to go to for the reversal surgery. I looked up the information, and it was the same surgeon who gave me the implants. We communicated when I saw him again, and he was willing to help me out to fix myself from what he did to me. So eventually he removed the implants in December of 2020. And it wasn't until February of this year that he finished fixing my chest. Now, obviously, I got lucky. The insurance covered the removal of the implants, but they did not want to. Actually, no. Did they want to cover that? There was one of the 2 surgeries that they did want to cover. I think it was I want to say the implants that they didn't want to cover, but I don't remember which one. It was either that one or reconstruction of my chest. But I know it was one of those 2 was gonna cost me about $3,000 from what my surgeon had told me. And eventually we got the second one covered under gynecomastia, which just means, for those who don't know what that means, it's male breast, male boobs, however you want to call it.
You got the surgeries done. Well, that's a lot, dude. That's a lot. To me, I think about, like, So this guy did this to me, and now I have to depend upon him to undo this. That had to be hard. I mean, it had to be difficult to have to deal with this guy again. I mean, because this is the guy that puts you in this position, kind of.
Yeah, I give him credit where credit is due. He was willing to at least work on me instead of saying no. So I give him that. I don't know if he did it because he was morally right or because, hey, it's 2 more surgeries and 2 more paychecks from my insurance. So I don't know whichever way he was going from it, but he was willing to work with me, which, again, I give him credit for that.
Did you have to start taking testosterone at this point to kind of put you back on level, or?
So the good thing is because I've never removed my genitals, I didn't really need them. I did ask for some testosterone, and I did take a couple injections for a while, but eventually I stopped just because I lost trust in the medical system, and I did not really trust the drugs they were giving me. I know it was testosterone, but I just didn't feel right taking the drugs that they were giving me.
Because it's part of the whole system, essentially.
Yeah.
Now, at some point, you decided to leave California. What was that like?
So I've always wanted to leave California because I've been here. Well, I was in California for about 22 years of my life, and by the time I left, and I was kind of done with it, especially after dealing with the fact that California was the one who destroyed my body. California sanctioned all this destruction on my body, and not just mine, but there's a lot of other detransitioners from California who have been hurt, and I just wanted to get away from it. I also didn't agree with them politically on a lot of stuff, so I wanted a fresh start somewhere in life, and there was a few states I was debating on, and in the end, Texas won.
Do you have family there, or did you go there solo?
Solo. I didn't have anyone here. I got lucky though. For the first few months, I was able to live with someone, and in the few months that I've been here, I've been able to make a lot of friends, and one of them is now my roommate since his old roommate left.
It's one thing to go through everything that you went through. It's another thing to go public about it and start speaking about it. And I've seen like your YouTube channel. It looks like you're becoming like an activist. And I know you're doing a lot of television appearances. What was the decision? Did that seem like a natural thing for you? Or did you start researching things about the government in general that you weren't aware of? Did all of this kind of prompt that, or how did that work?
This was a little funny how I started. So I technically came out publicly about almost 3 years ago by now. So the first time I've ever been on social media as a detransitioner was January of 2020. And that was with a YouTube channel by the name of Slightly Offensive with Elijah Schaefer. I was bored one day. I was working, and I had been following his work for a while, and I just sent him a direct message on social media. It's like, hey, my name is Abel Garcia. I'm a transgender woman in the process of trying to reverse the damage done to me. Would you be interested in having me on your show? Elijah replied back that same day, I think within an hour or so, and he said he'd love to have me on his show. And this was December of 2019. So he scheduled me for the first week or second week. I don't remember. I think it was the first week of January 2020. But I went on his show. We spoke about it about 40 minutes, and it took me about a year before I started doing my own stuff. But I've been very public since I started my own stuff on my own.
How does that make you feel? It must be empowering and scary at the same time.
So I'm very happy for what I've been able to accomplish, especially this last year. I've had a lot of opportunities since I've been out. Obviously, InfoWars had me on recently. I just was at Turning Point USA in Phoenix, Arizona with Drew Hernandez, and so that was good. I've been able to travel a good amount. I've been able to speak to a lot of people, help a lot of others. So I'm very happy for that. In the beginning, I was a little scared, but I think all my fears have mostly gone away when I went back to California early of October for an event, when I finally got to directly meet Antifa. That was an interesting day.
So talk about that, because I've had my run-ins with them as well.
So obviously I was one of the speakers at that event. It was
what was the event?
So it was the organization that held the event was called Our Duty, and it was called First Do No Harm. That was the name of the event.
And where was this, in San Diego or
Anaheim, California?
Anaheim.
And, yeah,
it was the doctor's event. It was the
the AAP. Yes.
Right.
So that was the event. So we had a lot of people come in, a lot of people supporting us. We had people from the far left to the far right, if you want to call it that, from a political line, compass, however you want to call it. A lot of them were old school feminist, old school Democrats, lifelong Democrats. I don't know if I didn't really see any Republicans, but then again, we were all requested not to have anything that makes us stand out. Yeah.
Right.
Because we were trying to make this apolitical. Obviously, these people were saying that we were all far-right neo-Nazis, fascists, the standard protocol. The Even though we had gays against groomers, we had she's now a woman, but a young woman who transitioned when she was a minor in California. We had a mother whose daughter is now dead because she transitioned. We had me, a Mexican, who transitions. Like, is it really far right if you have a lot of Democrats, a lot of lesbians, a little girl, a mother, and a Mexican, just for some diversity? Like, is it really far right? But then again, these people.
I'll tell you, Abel, I've been in a group of 2-3 black guys, mostly Latino and dotted with a few whites, and then have some of these people come up and just say, "Oh, well, you're all the fascist racist, white supremacist." I think that was a funny thing. They called us white supremacist. It was just like, hello. It's like, there's barely any white people here, but that's their go-to. So
yeah, no, I know that, but overall, that event went very well until we had our speakers event, which was around noon. And our first speaker was the mom who lost her daughter. Now it's been 3 years since her daughter's been dead.
And was that a suicide or?
Yeah, the mother, her name is Abigail Martinez. The daughter is Yaeli Martinez. To make her story, long story short, the state of California kidnapped the daughter from the mom under the false pretense of abusing her because she did not want the mom did not want the daughter to transition, take hormones. Eventually, California took the child away and transitioned the child. That was too much, I'm assuming, for the kid. And she eventually jumped in front of a train.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and obviously these activists blame the mom.
Sure.
But
the one thing I was going to ask you is, when you were there was this openness, and obviously they had opened up a lot of pathways with the clinics, and obviously pharmaceutical had a lot to do with that. But recently they passed the law here in California that says that they'll take out-of-state kids that are under
SB
18
107.
Minors. Exactly. That they'll take minors from out of state and everything like that. And so they've turned it into almost like this superhighway of transitioning for the entire country. And I live in Burbank, and we had a gay pride like here, like a few weeks ago. It wasn't tied with gay pride, but it was a purely one of these like groom fest, it was a trans show for kids, but there was all of this information, or a drag show for kids, but there was all this information for trans. And, you being in Texas, but I've seen a lot of it in Texas too, where they, and it seems to be a standard thing where they have this drag show for kids, and then they're utilizing Antifa to guard them. And then the ones in Texas, they're doing, because it's open carry state, they're walking around with guns. Have you seen some of this stuff down there?
Yeah, I've actually had a few interactions with Antifa. The first time I ever got to meet them in person was in Dallas, not long after I actually moved. So I don't know if you remember, it was huge all over the social media. It was the Mr. event, drag show in Dallas, Texas. I think it was the first week of Pride,
Right.
where they had the sign at the bar that said it's not going to lick itself. I don't know if you remember, if you saw that on. Yeah, so I was there that day. It was really bad, I'm going to be honest. Antifa obviously was protecting them, and I was doing some journalism that day. And obviously, Antifa was lying about me, even though they had never met me. So like, I'm going to twist the words. And if you see the footage I posted, everything's in context. I've never cut anything out.
The point is, the reason why I was bringing that up is because now it seems like the world is, and it's not just the state, it's not just California or Texas, it's global. I mean, I'm seeing this stuff in England and Australia and New Zealand, and this is just a push right now that's going on. Where do you think this is going?
Well, if it goes at the trajectory it's going and with no pushback, I think that they eventually want to sterilize all these kids with all the drugs, all the hormones, all the surgeries, and then mess up their minds saying that it's okay to be near men in women's attire in very skimpy outfits and derogative outfits, i.e. drag shows. So these kids don't know right from wrong, is what I'd say.
What are your plans moving forward? Are you going to continue with activism?
Yeah, I'm still going to continue activism. I'm going to continue speaking out, trying to talk to legislators to protect children. And for the ones who are coming out, I'm trying to support everyone and anyone who realized they made a mistake so they don't go the path that I went down. And trying to support any parents that I can.
People want to find out more about you. What do they do?
You can follow me on YouTube at Abel Garcia, and that's where I usually post most of my work, most of my videos. Official Abel G on Twitter is where I'm at 9 out of 10 times, and Instagram again also official Abel G, where I don't have a lot. I don't post a lot, but I need to give it a bit more love.
Well, Abel, listen, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today and to speak to my audience. And we really appreciate it. And again, what is the YouTube channel again?
Abel Garcia.
Thank you very much, Abel. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much for having me.
What they won't tell you, we will. Come and take it news.